I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And today you can kind of see that I'm surrounded by a bunch of amazing ladies in combat robotics, because today we're kind of doing a diversity spotlight on women that are involved in combat robotics and, engineering and all of that good stuff. So I'm so excited and thrilled to have all of you on the show. Awesome. Well, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go around and just have everybody introduce yourselves and kind of tell, for anybody that doesn't know. I mean, I think most of you, there's a lot of people that know who you are, but just in case they don't, tell a little bit about yourself, how you got into combat robotics, and all of that. And just because she's no stranger to being put on the spot on my show, I'm going to start with Ashley.
I knew that was coming, Christine. I wouldn't expect anything less other than to, be your awesome semi-co-host when we do BattleBots recap. So obviously people know my face and they've seen me on your show now multiple times, but I'm known in the NHRL space mostly from Utter Destruction, and now I work on the pit crew and behind the scenes a lot. And I've also been emceeing the Maker Battles in Hartford for the 1 pound events. So I've kind of I'm all over the space and like one of the biggest fans as well.
Absolutely. Genny.
Hi, so I'm Genny Korn. I'm on Team Banshee. I'm the one with the crazy makeup and the glowing green ribs, in case you missed me. But yeah, I started in combat robotics when I was in college with my team, the Killer Unicorns. That's when I met David from Banshee, then have become part of Banshee now, and I have my own team, Half-Baked Robotics, which right now doing a lot smaller robots, hoping to scale up. We'll see how that goes.
Very cool. Kezia.
Hi, I'm Kezia Skye, builder of Chainsaw Kitty, captain of Sleepy Anime Girl Club. I've been competing for about a year now at NHRL. I grew up watching BattleBots. I always wanted to make one, and I'm really glad to be part of it now.
Awesome. Shea.
My dogs chose that exact moment to bark, so
Perfect timing.
sorry, they've got a gift for that. So yeah, I'm Shea. I live out here in Las Vegas. I started watching BattleBots when I was about 27 or 28, and through that wound up meeting Jeff Waters and helped co-found Vegas Combat Robotics, which slipped in season 5 BattleBots with Jackpot when it got delayed for COVID reasons. And from there, I've been building my own 150 gram, 1 pound, 3 pound, now 30 pound BristleBots, and going from Jackpot to also helping with Triton. So I'm all over the place too. And now helping with merch at Destructathon, which is very exciting.
Very cool. Ellie.
Hi, I'm on Team Bloodsport, and I also compete in NHRL with my 3 pound robot Lavender Haze.
Great. And Lisa.
Well, it all began when I was 10 years old. Yeah, so my dad got me interested or introduced me to Robot Wars at the time. So this was pre-BattleBots, mid-90s. And so eventually I brought a robot out to that because I'm from the Midwest. And Robot Wars is in San Francisco. So that was sort of BattleBots and Robot Wars was my childhood. And then I fought in BattleBots on the TV show up until recently. In the past, I think 3 or 4 years, I guess it's hard to count now. I've been a judge on BattleBots.
Awesome. Well, That is amazing. I think like what I love is I think all of you come from, you know, really different backgrounds and different times that you've gotten into combat robotics. And like a lot of people say, there's really no bad time to get into it. You can start when you're young, you can start when you're 40 like me. So very cool. But what I want to talk about first is that, you know, one of the things for me that I always reflect on is that, you know, I see so many young people getting into combat robotics. And when I was younger, it wasn't something that was ever on my radar because there weren't other girls doing that. You know, I kind of did what I thought everybody else was supposed to be doing. And so when I first started watching BattleBots in the Comedy Central days, and again, I feel like this whole episode, I'm going to put people on the spot, but I mean, like, Lisa was one of the first people that I saw on BattleBots, and I was like, wow, like she's doing this, and this is so cool. And it was just, it's really what like drew me into the sport in the first place. And I'm just curious, you know, for any of you, was there like that person or people that you saw that you were like, hey, this is a really cool thing, I want to do this? You know, I'll kind of shift around, and I'll start with Genny actually this time.
Oh boy. So yeah, for me, it was Grant Imahara. Seeing him and all the Mythbusters that participated with BattleBots and combat robotics, he was a big, like watching him and what he did within engineering was a huge push me want to go into engineering. Unfortunately, he actually died the first day at my first job, and I just cried at my desk because like he was a huge influence on me, along with Andrea Gellatly on Witch Doctor. It was a similar thing of seeing other women doing STEM. That was just something that I didn't see much growing up, and just seeing like, oh, okay, they're doing it, I can do it. I can do it. So it was really Andrea and Grant that were the two biggest people that were influences for me to actually go into engineering in general and combat robotics.
Very cool. Kezia.
Yeah, I mean, watching BattleBots when I was a kid, I would see Lisa competing. It's kind of crazy to be on a podcast with her now, to be honest. Yeah, it's great seeing other girls doing it, and I always loved Ziggo as a kid. I actually named my first hamster after Ziggo. Yeah, I don't know what more to say right now. I'm a little starstruck at the moment.
I love Ziggo too. It was so good.
So good. Who would think a steel walk could be so destructive?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Shea.
Yeah, so like I said, I came to BattleBots kind of late as far as everyone seems to have watched it when they were kids, but I had moved to Las Vegas and I was working like crazy hours, and it was the first time that I actually like had cable and nothing else to do besides work and maybe watch TV for a little bit when I got, you know, home at midnight or whatever. And so I watched a rerun. Like my dad had always talked about BattleBots, and like we watched Junkyard Wars growing up. So I was like, oh, BattleBots, that's interesting. And I saw like the Tombstone Beta fight, and Beta self-writing was just like that was over after that. So, and the way they had kind of introduced John Reed on the show at the time was like, oh, he's had this robot on his like under his coffee table or as his coffee table for like 20 years, and now he's bringing it to the big stage. And I just remember thinking like, wow, you could just have robots in your house, like that's crazy. That's such a, you know. And now here I am in a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 full Tritons being my Christmas tree. And yeah, it can happen to you. But that kind of like got me hooked on it. I think I watched that fight like 6 times in a row just then, and kind of got more into it, found the Facebook group. Like I said, Jeff found me because he was looking for locals to compete with. And he asked me, he was like, oh, do you want to just like watch it, or do you want to like build for it? And I was like, I have nothing but free time and a SolidWorks license. I have no other hobbies right now. Let's do it. And so that kind of got me into it. And him and Robert Sten out here, like, it just kind of became what I did on weekends, was helping paint the arena or learning how their robots worked, putting events together, doing branding for that. Because I have a graphic design background, I did natural sciences stuff, like working at a science museum when I was in like middle and high school, but never much beyond that. So kind of having them as like the crazy idea bounce off folks really helped. And then when Dustin Eswine came out for like our second event that we held, he's the first person that I told about Cookie and the concept of just having like a one shell being the direction, the drive and weapon for the robot. And he was like, yeah, do it. So went straight into the overboard mentality right away. But also the weekend that I met Dustin, I met Bunny, and that was kind of like an eye-opening, like, oh, I can just be myself here. Like I was always myself with Jeff and Robert, and like getting to be friends very authentically. Like I never tried to be more of a guy or anything like that. Like I never tried to bro down about stuff. I was always very myself. But seeing like Bunny with the bunny ears and just unabashedly like, yes, I like making stuff, I like making pretty stuff, like all the merch things, like the crafty stuff as well as the engineering thing, like seeing someone who you know, was showing that that was a space you could take up was just really you know, that kind of changed how I perceived myself relative to the community. Not just being like the person who does branding for the events, but also like, oh yeah, making stuff in all ways is valid in this community, and it's okay to be you know, yourself when you're doing that. If you want to wear bunny ears, wear the bunny ears. I go by Waffles, like you can call me Waffles. Like I don't have to feel like I'm not meeting some sort of standard for existing in combat robotics, if that makes sense. Sorry, that was really long. But
that's fine. That was great. That was
because I didn't
great.
have the TV really like influence as much, you know. So once I started getting into it, just meeting people who were really cool and made space for me was beyond helpful.
Absolutely. Ellie.
Yeah, so I would say the person that probably influenced me the most growing up, since I mean, I'm still pretty young, I'm still in college. So I started off in Lego robots when I was in the 3rd grade. And I remember watching BattleBots as a TV show growing up. And I was always like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. And I remember watching Andrea from Witch Doctor. And I mean, besides Bloodsport, Witch Doctor is one of my favorite robots. And I just remember watching, I was such a huge fan, and actually got the chance to meet Andrea at Vex Worlds one year when I competed in Vex Robotics. And I remember like walking around the robots for the first time and being like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And like being able to like take pictures. And I was like working on my Vex robot, which is a lot smaller. And then like these huge robots that destroy things. And I just remember like meeting her and being like so like starstruck by her, and her influence as a strong female presence. And then I actually got to meet her again at filming, and we actually got to like chat and stuff, which was like amazing.
Yes, it is always very cool to have the opportunity to meet your heroes. Now, Lisa, I'm very curious to hear your answer.
I mean, so in the beginning, at Robot Wars, I was 10, and I think we all see like stuff a bit differently when we're that young. For me, I was very focused on the hobby and like the competition, and I was like having a lot of fun because I'm just really a mechanical person. So I wasn't, I don't think I was like focused on, you know, who is what gender, or like, you know, are there females here, besides the fact that my friend, or I became friends with her while we were there, Cassidy Wright, who had Chiabot. And so I think we were really the only 2 like little girls there. And then also in the way beginning, I was in awe of April, who there was like a few badass women that were part of teams that at my age, they were like, you know, so much older, right? But they were probably like, I don't know, 15 years older than me or something, but they just looked really cool and had like boots and flame socks and Betty Page hair. And I was just like, those are cool people. And I don't know, it's stuff like that. But yeah, I did focus on the robots a lot and the engineering, and that was, you know, I wasn't thinking about like being a female, if that makes sense. I was just like, this is fun, I want to be here. So I was a bit blind to that, I would say.
Once you got older, did that change? Was not necessarily like female, but just in general, anybody in the sport that you like came to really respect and admire?
Well, like people have been saying on Andrea, and I think, you know, Chomp, like Chomp's engineering is unbelievable, and Zoe is so smart, and you know, she took a break to have a baby, and it's like, that's one of those crazy things that women have the potential to do. And so but she was also like super pregnant at one of the events, so she can be a badass in every way at the same time, which was just very inspiring.
Yes.
Yeah, having a baby and then coming back with 500-pound walker Chomp. So inspiring. But also, like, you get the impression, oh, that's just her daily life.
Can confirm. Yes. Ashley.
It's really surreal to be surrounded by all of the people here, and it's like super emotional because like I got into robotics late, obviously, and Shea is like one of the biggest inspirations to me. I don't know if you've ever known that, but like the first event you were ever at NHRL, I was just like, wow, like, okay, like I can just, like you said, I can just be me. I don't have to worry about it. Like I can run around in a cow onesie and people aren't going to think anything differently of me. Like I can attach glitter balloons to my robot and people are going to think it's cool. And like, just, I can just be that person that I've always been, that I've always like you like think in high school, like, oh, that's the weird kid or like whatever. But like in the space that we have, like nobody thinks that. And so like everybody here in their own way is like so inspirational, and it's like so emotional, and I apologize, but like it means more than anything to me to be in this space and with these women, like for real.
That makes me super happy because I thought I totally creeped you out like the first time I met you, and I wanted to I had these tiny hands that I put on robots for pictures because it like helps people see the robots a little differently when you see little tiny hands sticking out of them, or feet, you know, like for the weird ones. And I was like, can I put hands on your robot? And you're like, Milktank's over there. And I was like, oh no. I think, and then I offered the feet. I was like, I have feet if you prefer that. And then I was like, oh no, she's never gonna, oh my God, wrong way to meet somebody. So no, I'm glad that was not the way it played out in my head. That's real.
I had to have those explained to me, by the way, Shea.
The which ones? The hands?
The feet and the hands. I was very confused at your pit.
There's not really an explanation. I'm sorry. It's one of those icebreaker things at events where it's like, I'm really interested in somebody's robot. I don't know how to approach them about it. Asking someone, hey, where do you think hands would go on your robot, is an icebreaker, and it makes people think differently about it. And then they get to show you like their favorite thing about the robot, or see how, you know, it's a little bit less yeah, that's my super normal icebreaker that I thought made Ashley think I was a crazy person, which, hey, being a crazy person, totally okay. Totally okay. That's a good thing.
That actually reminds me of something, not to totally take this off topic,
Please
but like, I think, you know, talking about hands and stuff, like, I think for me, like, you know, people are people, and I was just like, okay, awesome, that's a cool person, that's a cool person. There's plenty of people of all genders in BattleBots, and everyone's like super nice. But there's also like the appearance of the robot. And I feel like there's like very sort of masculine looking robots, and then there's like feminine or artsy style robots. I sometimes, you know, people will comment on that, like, oh, you know, like Lisa and Fawn maybe are more into like the decorative robots, right? Although it's like, no, we judge very fairly, I would say. But but yeah, I think there's like more feminine style robots, right? Like I feel like they get a different amount of attention and from a different group. And with the Ladybug, I was, you know, I think it's just really good at getting like young girls interested because they're seeing something sort of relatable and cute. Instead of a boring metal box. I'm sorry, but sometimes there's boring metal boxes.
All of my 30-pound bots, I purposely decorated ridiculously with the purpose of having kids come up to me and ask them about them. My first one, when the weapon spun up, looked like a roll of lifesavers when it would spin up. And Glitter Bomb, which I actually was contacted from, I'm forgetting his name now, but there's a Glitter Bomb in the UK and he contacted me. It's like, hey, we have the same name robot. Like, would you talk to my kids? It was really sweet. So yeah, but I am in the same boat of I like ridiculously decorated things because then people come up and they're like, what's that? Why does your robot have rainbows on it? What's going on here?
Yes, and that's actually a perfect segue, I think, because I'll get into some of the questions that were asked when I, asked people to submit questions. And depending on, there's like 3 questions and they're all very similar in some ways. So depending on how the first question answers go, I may not even need to ask the other 2 questions. But the first question is from Tony D'Ambrosio, who is an amazing builder, within both BattleBots and NHRL. And first he said, thank you for being an inspiration for young girls in this sport. And then he followed that with, is combat robotics lagging or leading in terms of diversity and inclusion versus other types of sports and hobbies? And if there is any room for improvement, what does that look like to do better in that space? So I always start with one of my more loaded questions towards the beginning. So sorry, Kezia, I'm gonna put you on the spot first.
I mean, as far as STEM goes, normally STEM is a pretty, male dominated sort of thing. I am really surprised. I meet a lot of queer people, a lot of women. It feels a lot more diverse than your average, engineering space, I would say. I haven't been around very long, but in my experience, I'd say it's a lot more diverse than I would have expected.
Do you think that there's anything that the sport could do better in that arena, or do you think that it's pretty good and inclusive right now?
It's hard for me. I really haven't been around that long. But I do think, there are a lot of us that are showing up, that are showing other women, other young girls, they can do this. And I think that is helping. I know Tony D'Ambrosio's daughter is taking over Blackbird soon, so showing her she can do it. And I know I've had a bunch of small kids and girls come up to me. They love Chainsaw Kitty, and it feels great to get that.
Yeah, absolutely. Shea.
Oh gosh, it's funny I mean, because obviously Aria is going to be like person to watch, even if she doesn't, you never know how long kids will stick with like something like that. But I think like everything about what Anthony's made available to her, like in terms of things you can do, like no matter what, I know she's going to do some really cool stuff just because I think it's a little bit easier now to have that accessible, younger. Let's see, remind me the question exactly again, because I thought myself into a couple circles.
That's fine. It's more in terms of like combat robotics in terms of diversity and inclusion versus like other sports and hobbies. Like, what does that look like? And, is there anything we can do better?
I think it's pretty special in that you aren't, there's not a boys league, there's not a girls league. You're all fighting each other. You're all working together. And because you're not directly like, it's not like when you're working out, right, where it's like, oh, lift harder. Like instead, your problems are a lot more like technical. So people can give you input. Like Cookie, most people don't really have advice that's specific to whatever that is, but they can give me advice on the wiring or, things like that. Like it makes them think about things in a different way. So they start, it helps with creativity that way. So I guess that because everything is sort of processed through what are you trying to do? What are you trying to make? Most of the feedback I get is a lot more like they're excited that I'm coming at things a little bit differently from someone who might have had the STEM training all their lives, because I'm just like, I'm a graphic designer. I want to make this thing on toothbrushes spin, So I guess that's kind of the thing, because it's not necessarily about me as a person. It's about my ideas. It's about what I want to try and do. It's, the problems I want to solve and what solutions they have that might help me. I feel like it's a lot less personal in a way, but also it's so social. You're personally connecting with the people that are helping you or talking to you or that you're fighting. So, and I'm not a very competitive person. It's really about the design challenge for me. I like when I win, of course, because it's like validating and like I like the structure of seeing like a success module, but also my definition of success is not the same as a lot of the builders and competitors that are out there. So I think because it's not a gendered sport and it is so intellectually motivated, based, we have sort of a leg up on other sports when it comes to inclusion.
Yeah, definitely agree. Ellie.
Yeah, so I would say in terms of engineering and like the realm of engineering, I feel like combat robotics is very, very inclusive. I've met more women in combat robotics than there are in my mechanical engineering classes. I'll be one of 2 girls in a class of 50, but I can go to a combat robotics event and there will be around 25 to 50% females, which is really nice to see because in my classes, that's not really the case. I think in terms of general, I think that the engineering as a whole has a long way to go to be inclusive of everyone. And in terms of like other sports, like being separated based on gender. So like I play 2 sports and they're both like women's sports. We don't compete against other guys. I think that combat robotics shouldn't have that. I think that being able to compete against everyone, no matter like how long they've been doing it, their gender, literally anything, evens the playing field, and it's really, really like inclusive.
Yeah, for sure. Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say those were all great summaries. I don't think there's much more to add. I mean, BattleBots has always tried to be very inclusive. And there's always room for improvement, but I think we're definitely, on the up and up in general. And yeah, I would say like if there's anything we can do though, like just like this I was gonna say podcast, like this video, this interview, and just like all of us, what we're doing personally, is just really great to like continue showing that like women and not the average engineer or roboticist are out there, because like, yeah, you were just saying, Ellie, that like in your classes there may be 1 or 2 females, but I feel like if there's at least 1 or 2, and then other people will see that, and then it'll keep growing. So we just have to be like really visible, and that's gonna help.
Yeah, for sure. And Ashley, and I mean, I know with you, because you do a few different things, I mean, you probably see things from like multiple perspectives too.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm repping my dreamy shirt for Aria. She's competing next weekend in Hartford, and I cannot wait to see her drive again. She was so freaking adorable last time, and just to see what she's done and like being so excited and having that robot covered in a rainbow and having a cloud as a weapon lock. It was like literally the cutest thing what Tony's building for her. And to have like Amanda and Liz and so many women just being there for Aria, like, and supporting her, like she has so far to go. And Shay's right, like she's one to watch, because next year when she's driving Blackbird, like I can't wait. And like we like there's so much room and so much space for women, and I think like like Ari is what, like 7 or 8, and like so there's so much that if she sticks with it, and like she seems to like really like it. Like I watched her work on Dreamy in April, and like it's the cutest thing. Like she'll tell you all about it. So I think she's growing up in a great space, and I think like even just in the last like 2 years at NHRL, like the amount of females has grown exponentially. Like Kezia and all them like just recently started coming. Like the fields are just getting bigger and bigger, and like every time like there's moms competing now, like there's moms dressing up as clowns and embarrassing their kids now. Like there's so much
Amazing.
everything fun that is going on at NHRL and in BattleBots, and like I can't wait to see like where it goes from here.
Yes, definitely. So then this next question, speaking about like where it goes from here, was from Kyle Cuffrey, who's going to be on a different panel that I'm doing, but he said, you know, about how combat robotics has that even playing field, you know, for competitors, that there's no separate division or anything like that. So, you know, what are some ways that we can work on growing the overall popularity to really make this, you know, something for everyone that everyone wants to get involved in, and kind of continue to grow what we've already built on. I mean, technically this is like a topic that I'm discussing on a separate podcast, but I also think that this is a good topic for everyone here. So Shea, you know, as far as growing the sport further.
It's interesting because like we had a group of young like middle school girls come through Destructathon, like local in Las Vegas, like as part of a school group. Like if they took a field trip to kind of walk through and see. First, it's cool because it's a Las Vegas show. You get to see behind the scenes how all that works, all the technical stuff, but also like I walked them through the shop and like how are different, you know, the different machining we have available, the different tools we use, the different processes for that, and like being able to explain at that age what, you know, this is basic manufacturing. Like, here's what additive manufacturing is. Welding is a thing you can do. Like, these are ways things are made. That's something when I was young, I think if I had really wrapped my mind around or had been presented to me as like, these aren't just objects, these are things that are made. And here's, you know, how you can think about that. I feel, and there's a lot of YouTube resources like that too. I think like kids today are going to be coming up with a better understanding of, you know, how to create things, because there is a lot more content out there for people to, you know, be more pragmatic about how they interact with things and making their own things. So I feel like that's just kind of the thing, putting it out there, how things are made, and getting enabling people to think about what they can do is, you know, a pretty great start.
For sure. Ellie.
Yeah, I was gonna say like exposure while they're young. Even though like I watched BattleBots growing up, and I got exposure to robotics very young in the 3rd grade, and I stuck with it all the way through middle school, high school, and now into college. So like exposure while they're young is what I would say probably to increase. And then also the like cost of starting a team. So like I know a lot of college teams now are getting grants to be able to invite more people to the space and being very inclusive in that direction.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of the wonderful things that NHRL has started doing with like the prize money for winning and stuff like that, and giving those opportunities. So yes, definitely. Lisa.
Yeah, just adding to those wonderful ideas. I think like there's seeing it on TV is one thing, but what you were just making me realize is like that also can be a little alienating sometimes, because it seems like, okay, these are really big robots and they probably cost $1 bazillion, and how could I ever do that? But like for example, I did a bit of FRC mentorship, and those high schoolers had never touched tools or felt comfortable, and we gave them the opportunity to be like, okay, here's a drill, this is how you use it, you can totally do it, you're allowed to do this, you know, don't worry if you mess anything up. And so I think, yeah, starting young, making sure if you're a family or in a school or a teacher, you know, showing kids that like things are accessible and that anyone can make stuff is a great starting off point. Because I think sometimes people just assume, like, especially when you're young, like, oh, that's for like an engineer, or you need to go to college, or, you know, like, that's not for me, but it can really be for anyone.
It definitely can be. What about you, Ashley?
For me too, like now one of the coolest things like with what Makerspace is doing is like they're really encouraging that at like a young age, and they're allowing like that in their space. And like there were so many kids at the last event that were just like, this is so cool. And like 1 pound robots, like they're so little, and like there's not a lot to them, and a lot of the times they're just a control bot, but it's really like a good starting point. And like even the other day I was like, I could do a 1 pound robot. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know I've done a 30 and a 12 and like whatever, but like I could do a 1 pound, and like that's accessible to me. And like having like Lindsay, like Chris just bought Lindsay an SSP kit, and she's like, I'm ready, like I want to fight. Like just having that out there now and stuff is like super cool, because it's like we don't have to necessarily know how to build. Like if we want to just learn how to drive, like there's people out there that will help us. And like Seth, and there's so many other people that have just like these incredible resources. Like YouTube is such like a thing. Like my niece is 8 and can probably navigate YouTube better than I can. And like, but that's what's gonna teach these kids. And like it's out there, and they just want to sit there and watch videos, but they're gonna learn so much.
Yes, they definitely will. Genny.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that keeps people from doing big projects in general is cost for barrier to entry. And I know for me, when I was younger, that was a big thing of like, how am I gonna, I was in FRC. Those are expensive robots to build. They're multi-$1,000s, which as a high schooler, that's a lot of money. Even now, that's a lot of money. But I think a lot of people don't realize that you don't necessarily need a laser cutter in your living room. Personally, I don't have one. Would love one. If anyone has one, let me know. But it's something where, because of how technology is advanced, and now you can send off files to get cut from a free software that you downloaded as a maker license. There are different resources out there that I think a lot of people don't know exist. And that if you go looking, you can find them, but they're not necessarily easy to find initially. But I think if we really focus on those resources of, hey, you can get a maker license from XYZ CAD company. You can go to this company, you can get your parts laser cut and they'll send them to you. You can go to the hardware store and get a Dremel and a screwdriver and things like that. And also there are teams that put together kits where for a competition, you can come with a kit bot. That's fine. You're doing something, you're learning. You're going to learn regardless of if you design the robot or if it's a kit bot that you brought with, or you aren't necessarily limited by that kit. You can add stuff to it, you can take stuff away, you can change it. You can be an engineer in your own capacity, even if you're not an engineer with the fancy piece of paper situation. So I think a lot of people get scared away by cost and resources with it, but there are resources online. You have to dig a little bit, and there are groups online that you can find, a lot on Facebook, some stuff on Reddit that can help, or things like that, where if you do digging, you can find resources. But I think we need to make those more available so that people aren't just kind of scared away by the amount of knowledge that you may not have. No one had it when they started. I don't think anyone can say electronics in their robot are doing what they're generally supposed to be doing in their robot, or running at currents they should be running in their robot. But we all learn, and we all learn on the fly. And I think that's something a lot of people, they learn once they come to an event, but making that more apparent of we're all learning as we're going along, and we're figuring it out and making things better collectively.
Yeah, definitely. Kezia.
I feel like everybody's probably covered most of what I would have said, but resources nowadays are crazy. YouTube, all that, not that long ago, I didn't know CAD or like what a brushless motor was or an ESC. Like I learned all this stuff through YouTube. Seth Schaefer's content honestly had a lot to do with that. It shows in my robot a lot, but yeah, I don't come from like an engineering background or anything like that. I just had a passion for it, and I started learning, and it's working somehow. But it's really crazy. You can learn anything on YouTube nowadays.
It is definitely a resource, that is for sure. Now, so this is a good question. What would you say if you could think of, like, just to pick a moment of like your either proudest moment or like a time that you surprised yourself, in doing this, obviously like in a good way, throughout the time that you've been doing combat robotics. So I'll start with Ellie.
Yeah, so I'm actually pretty new to combat robotics. I started in December, and my first tour was in January, and I actually went to BattleBots and filming for BattleBots without ever seeing a combat robotics tournament before. So that was my first time ever. And so I came back and I was convinced there by my teammates to start building a 3-pound because I've only ever done VexU robotics. And so I was like, all right, I got 4 weeks during Christmas break. I am building a 3-pound robot and I'm going to compete in January at the NHRL New Bots event. So I made that my goal and I bought a plane ticket like a week beforehand because I couldn't figure out if like my electronics were actually gonna work or not or catch fire. And that was a fun test outside my apartment. And so that experience was very eye-opening to me, because I've done Vex for almost 10 years now. So like moving into something I could continue on after college, and being able to test my skills, because I also did first robotics and I missed parts of Vex first that Vex didn't have. So being able to use those skills again, and then also just being able to cat out a robot and have fun for 4 weeks and then go play robots at NHRL was like amazing.
That is pretty amazing for sure. Lisa.
Oh no, I knew you were gonna pick me. I don't have a story right now. I gotta let it percolate.
We can circle back. We can circle
Okay.
back. I'll go to Ashley.
Oh boy. I mean, I would say like a lot of my successes, quote unquote, right, were like with like Milktank and Tamra and everything that we did, and just like getting those first couple, like we did eventually get a win and we qualified for finals like the first year that we were in it, like, and that was something we never expected to do. Like we went in, we knew nothing. Like our first robot was made out of a 2x4 piece of wood and skateboard wheels. But by the end of the year, we qualified for finals and like didn't actually do that bad overall. And so every moment that like I stepped beside a cage, like essentially was a win for me, because like every moment was a different learning experience and a different outcome and a different like, oh, okay, now what problem do we have to fix? But like we were making strides and like doing well and just having fun, and that was all that mattered to us. So like anytime I step beside a cage, I'm just happy to be there.
Yes, definitely. Kezia.
What was the question exactly again?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
so what is like your proudest or like, wow, I can't believe I did that moment that you can think of?
Honestly, I had one happen at the very first event. I spent 6 months, designing and building Kitty, which for me also meant learning CAD and all the electrical engineering stuff, because I didn't know any of that before that. And I didn't know if the bot was going to work. I didn't know if she was going to blow up. I had a shorting issue when I was in the pits trying to get it through safety the first time. David Chin and Ribot helped me with that. And yeah, it did surprisingly well. And then it was probably my 3rd or 4th fight of the day. I hit a robot in the ceiling so hard that the lights came down. And that was the moment it was like, oh my God, I'm doing this. What the hell is going on? Like, how does this work? And how is it doing good? And just at every event since then, I'm just like, wow, it works. It's still catching up to me a little, honestly.
Yeah, it'll do that. Shea, what about you?
Well, like most people, NHRL had a really big moment for me when we brought Depth Charge to December finals, which was mostly motivated, for the charity money we wanted to give back to the Southern California Attack Robotics program. But running Depth Charge, which is Dustin's robot. Obviously, he had twins, so he couldn't make it himself, but we wanted to represent BristleBots in the finals, you know, had to bring it out. And it was a very intimidating robot to me, just from a mechanical standpoint. I'm, you know, that isn't my background. A lot of times, like everything about it, like the Harbor, or not Harbor Freight, the McMaster-Carr orders, like we'd be organizing the hardware, and I was just like, what do all of these things do? Like the thrust bearings, like the needle roller, like everything in it. I was just like, I don't get it, but okay, I'm going to organize it and I'm going to put it in the robot and do all these things. And after the first fight, when we had to repair it, the mini bot had gotten obliterated. Brad was focused on that because that has wheels. I can't work on things with wheels. So he was working on the wheeled mini bot, and I was like, okay, well, Depth Charge is here. And he didn't have the bandwidth to like kind of tell me what to do. But I was looking at it and I was like, oh, this, I know what I have to do. And so then I did it. And a big like mental hurdle that I had to overcome was, oh, it's hard, but that's not my fault. That's because it's hard. It's not because I'm wrong. It's just a hard situation, and I can fix it. I can go through it. And changing my mindset from being like, oh, I'm the problem because I don't know, to this is a problem and I have to solve it, it sounds really like very basic and very small, but and embarrassing that it took me till I was like 33, but it was a big moment for me, and I put it together and it was done. And like Brad turned around and was like, oh, we got to get in the arena. I need to put Depth Charge. Oh, you put Depth Charge together. Okay, cool. And I had messed up the spacers on the weapon, so it didn't run perfectly, but it did well, and you know, it did what it needed to do. And that's how I learned what the spacers were for. I just don't know what I thought they were doing there, but now I understand, you know, what exactly they were doing. And like I said, it's kind of late in life. It's kind of a dumb thing, but it was a moment that I actually really learned how to do that. And yeah, it beat a flipping self-writing itself, just realizing how I did the spacers wrong. Big moment for me.
It's the little things sometimes, really.
About a 16th. Yeah.
Lisa, did you think of something?
Yeah, I mean, well, it made me think of two things. Basically, like you said, like almost everything is a win, like when you're doing it, because everything is so difficult that even if you do something well or not well, like you're learning. And showing up and actually having a robot to a competition, that's winning. That's a good thing. You know, passing safety, that's a good thing. Like all of these things, you're just holding your breath the whole time. And I don't know, they're all wins in my book. But yeah, the other thing like about the spacers made me think after one of my first matches, like sorry, I have a show and tell. My original Ladybug robot, like the 60-pound version, the lightweight looked like this, and then the big one, Megatento, it was like, you know how it is, like robots when you scale them, they're not exactly the same, right? There's physics. And originally I had well, the McDonald's toy is not exactly the same as the robot, but I had a spinning weapon inside. And after the first fight with Megatento in like its new grand mega configuration, that's how I ran it. And then I realized afterwards, I had this just biggest epiphany ever, where I'm like, we can turn the blade around. The weapon that was pointed, that was inside, that where I capture and I spin and I kill him like a blender, I can have that pointed to the back. So on the front I have the capturing, on the back I have the spinning weapon. And that also changed the weight and centered more weight on the wheels. So after that first match, it was just like, oh my God, this thing runs way better. And it was just the world changed. But yeah, I think really anything is a win. Like getting your robot to move is a win. And So yeah, this stuff is hard.
Yes, it is. Well, that's great. I loved all of those answers. And then one other thing that I want to make sure, and I mean, your answers may be all similar, that's fine, but I really want to ask this, you know, if you could give any like advice to young people, especially young girls who are looking to get into the sport and thinking like, you know, I don't know if I can do this. I don't, you know, I don't know if this is really a thing for me. What's the best thing that you could say to, you know, to those people, or even not even young people, like a 40-year-old, you know, 40-something-year-old woman like myself that's like, I've never built a robot in my life. You know, like what advice do you give to, like, you know, these new potential builders coming into the sport? So Ashley, I'm putting you on the spot again.
My advice always, and like I've been caught in so many interviews just saying, just do it. Like, just get your hands in it, do something, find a resource, find somebody. Like, there's so many people out there just willing to give advice about robots. It's absolutely insane. Like, you can ask one person a question and they'll be like, yep, like, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with so many different builders about so many different things that like they just want to tell me stuff, and I am like, okay, like just tell me, because I'm just learning from you. Like, just do it. Go to an event, just show up, be present, and like get your hands in it, and like just go. Don't let the like your mind hold you back. Like, at some point, like there's something in this space that you can accomplish, like, and it can be something so small, like as little as like just create a mini bot, like make something tiny, like just go.
Yeah, very true. Kezia, I know that you're very new to this, but like as somebody who's just come into it pretty recently, you know, like what would you tell people?
Yeah. The barrier of entry is not as high as you think it is. You can do it. You can learn everything you need to know online. Get in the NHRL Discord. Everybody there will help you build a whole robot. Or you can buy a kit, you know, just get a kit, bring it to NHRL. Bam, you're in combat robotics. It's really probably not as difficult as you think it is.
Yeah. Shea.
Oh, my main like advice for most people usually is like, don't be afraid if you don't know the basics. There are hundreds of people who know the basics and who can help you with that. What they can't help you with is whatever weird outside the box thing that you have. Like, anybody can think inside a box, but you're the only one in your box. So what you're bringing to this, to, you know, design as a concept, you know, all that, like, respect everything that's already out there. There's a lot of information that's already been learned the hard way that people are willing to share with you, but you know, you don't have to try to do what everyone else is doing. And even if you try to do what everyone else is doing, odds are you're going to come up with, you're going to arrive at a different way, you know. But also a big what I think is a really great thing happening right now as far as kits go is Scar and Malice put together these plastic ant kits that have everything you need electronics wise and everything, and they have a servo, like whatever, but also everyone sort of designed their own plastic ant around that. So you can download the print files, put it together yourself, and then also you have the bones there of whatever you might want to design around. So it's a great starting point to see how other designers think, like how they designed their plastic ant. It's all open source, it's all available. And if you wanted to like take that kit and send cut send parts instead and make full combat ant, you can. But those kinds of kits where they're a very basic starting point, you know, that's a, you can do things the way that like based off convention, but take it your own direction, and it'll be, you know, that's where the excitement happens.
Yeah. Ellie.
Yeah, I would say don't be scared to do it, and like it is okay to fail. Like you will learn a lot more in your failures than you will in like your success. Even though it might feel better in the moment, you'll learn so much more. And then like you can find so many resources endlessly. Like you could ask anyone at any combat robotics competition a question. If you're having struggles getting your weapon moving, I remember showing up to my first combat robotics tournament with my 3-pound, and I couldn't pass safety to save my life. Like it was so difficult. And I remember everyone coming around and trying to help me get past safety. And then when I did, I was like, yes. And then I went and competed. It was so great, and I learned so much my first competition. And then what I would say to like young girls in engineering is don't be scared to be the only female in the room. You will fit in, like you will. If you might not, even if you don't think you will, you will. The guys are probably more intimidated by you than you are intimidated by those guys. So just be yourself. Like don't try to be one of the bros. Like be your authentic self, but they will accept you. And combat robotics is like very inclusive.
Yeah, for sure. Lisa.
I mean, all of that was like super good. And you can also be a bro, a female bro. Like I'm very broy. But like, yeah, I don't know. Start small. Like my first robot, I guess it's in the house. I'm using it as a doorstop, but it was a 1 foot like square with a lawnmower blade on top, and it was called Doughboy. And I put like the hat and the gloves on to cover up the blade, and that was, I think, 20 or 25 pounds, because that was like featherweight back in Robot Wars days. And it's a lot more accessible starting small, I would say. I even knowing what I know now, like I wouldn't jump into the 250-pound category. And yeah, we all know nothing in the beginning, so it doesn't matter who you are, what age you're starting. We all know nothing, and you gotta fail to learn. And it's just a lot of fun. Oh, and like the community, like people are saying, is really open, and like if you contact anyone in robotics, like they will respond and help you. You know, I feel like most people who've seen BattleBots have seen that like behind the scenes, even if 2 teams are competing and they each want to win, like they'll still help each other in the pits. So we're just a very friendly community, and everyone's welcome.
Yep. You all said it perfectly. You know, and I can just say, like, from my own experience, that when I first set out to do this podcast, it was very intimidating to me to think about doing it, because I've never really done something on this scale before. And I don't think that there were many points ever where I felt like, you know, I wasn't welcome, or that, you know, people didn't just like the fact that I'm trying to promote and grow the sport like everybody else is. So I think that that's just so important to, you know, recognize and learn from. And, you know, even with the building aspect, that for a long time I kept refusing and saying, I'm not going to build, like, I'm not good at that. I don't build robots. But I was eventually convinced. And so, you know, it really does prove, like, I think anybody can do it. So that's amazing. I truly, like, my mission with doing this panel, I think, was validated by the wonderful answers that you have all given. And I mean, I think that, you know, hopefully we can just keep growing this sport, and it is just an amazing community. And I'm just so thankful to have been able to bring everyone together and have this discussion to talk about this. Did anybody have any like last things that they wanted to add before we close it up?
I'm super hyped to meet at least 2.5 of you that I don't super know very well. So this is really fun to get to know more people.
Yeah, ditto. Thanks for putting this together. I mean, I know it's not helpful for the viewers to say that, but I think, I mean, it's good to yeah, it's like, it's go to an event like this. We all want to see each other, and so if you're watching this, like, go to an event and hook up with you know, get everyone's contact information, hang out, talk robots, because it's like people were saying, like it's about the engineering and the robots and like the cool mechanical stuff or the design or whatever. Like it's less about the people, and like so there's that nice disconnect, right, where it's like you're not fighting a person, you're fighting a robot, and you can talk about that instead of any other personal differences. But I'm blabbering on. Yeah, everyone here is awesome.
You're fine. And I mean, yes, like that's it really is such a good point. You know, like if you go to a robot competition, especially at NHRL, because everything is so blended amongst people from, you know, different backgrounds and things like that, you can go up to somebody who's a new builder and get advice. You could go up to, you know, giant nut winner Jameson Go and get advice, and like he will happily give it to you. So it's, you know, it's that's the type of community where this is great, and just everybody wants to help everybody and see everybody be successful.
And sometimes that advice is going to be about something really small.
Drive your own robot in September.
Yeah, in September. So we will see. I have a couple of months, but I, you know, now that I have some parts, including some amazing parts from Bunny of Team Malice that I just received today and was so excited. You know, because when you get little screws and stuff like that, it's like, okay, cool, these are screws. But then when you get like your freaking armor, then it's like, oh, this is really cool. So yeah, that's definitely going to be exciting. But you know, for those who are watching the show, and just to add, like saying like this is a good thing to put together, Lisa, that's not a bad thing for the viewers, because I really, you know, I want to hear that feedback, you know, for people that are watching. What do you think about these roundtables, and do you want to see more? Because I can tell you there are an infinite amount of topics that I could do these on. So if you like them, I will keep doing them and find amazing people to get together to talk about these things. So if you do like them, please make sure that you like, subscribe, share, comment, you know, all of that good stuff. Keep giving me that feedback. Please keep supporting Combat Robotics, because it is amazing, best community ever. And we will, of course, see everybody next time on the show.